Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to World of Horror. This game, as the creators put it themselves, is an homage to the old adventure games from the 80s, which explains the old-timey pixel art style, but at the same time, it is so much more. World of Horror is an adventure horror video game that plays like a single-player roguelite Japanese adventure horror board game. I know it's a mouthful, but it's true. World of Horror is actually a mashup of many different sources it took inspiration from. But first things first. How can a game that looks like this be scary? It's just 1-bit pixel graphics, which means there can only be two colors on the screen at once, black and white. Or in my case, black and green, because I wanted to feel reminded of the old Game Boy days. And if that's not for you, then you can swap out the color palette for anything you like. And if you feel really fancy and have no fear of burning your GPU out, you can upgrade to 2-bit mode, which gives you up to 4 glorious colors at once. But the question remains, how can you scare an audience that is used to stuff like this with this inconspicuous pixel mash? And the answer is by showing them some disturbing artwork that was inspired by the one and only horror mangaka Junji Ito. Even if you don't know the name, you have definitely seen Ito's work in some capacity. Ito was one of the collaborators who worked on Silent Hills, you know, the project that Konami cancelled, and he also has a cameo in Death Stranding, which might explain why that world has gone to crap as well. Honestly, I think he just wanted more spirals and chaos in the game. Now, Mr. Ito did not have a hand in this game, but as I said, the artwork you will witness here is clearly Ito inspired. One of the strongest recurring themes in Ito's work is body horror, and you're going to see a lot of that in here too. And it does a very good job in freaking you out. It's not scary per se, but as good body horror should do, it will prompt your brain to revolt at the imagery because, look at this, something's clearly not right here, I can't put my finger on it. Is it the hair? It's definitely the hair. Junji's stories, on the other hand, usually revolve around everyday people who find themselves at the whim of a cruel and capricious universe. They get put into downright evil and unnatural circumstance for no discernible reason. If there is an order to things, it is usually incomprehensible to the characters of the story and reader alike. Now question, does that sound familiar to you? Because one of Ito's biggest influences was H.P. Lovecraft, which is also the second source of inspiration the game utilizes. Just like in the works of Lovecraft, characters have to fight against mind-warping abominations and uncover mysteries that were never designed for any human to see. The story of the game is very simple. A sinister cult has come to your town, and they perform some kind of ritual to awaken an ancient god. And they might just be the real deal. Ever since they arrived, strange occurrences start to happen all around you. It's not just robed figures that can be seen in the night, some people claim to have seen actual monsters roaming the streets. Naturally, you, who is embodied by a Japanese high school student, will investigate these strange occurrences. Because we all know it always comes down to the Japanese teenager to save the world. So, in summary, the world's setting is clearly Lovecraft inspired, while the world itself is fleshed out by adaptations of Junji Ito's art style. But I found one more source of inspiration for World of Horror. It's a very peculiar board game called Arkham Horror. I know this because I bought the board game 4 years ago, and the gameplay is strikingly similar in the way this video game is played. And I got evidence. Tons of it actually. Look at the title card, now back to me, now back to the title card, now back to me. Tentacle monster gets shot while a car is in the front. Hello, copycat. The board game has a lot to offer and it really deserves its own review. But for now, I just want to create a baseline so we can compare the two games, so we're going to talk about Arkham Horror. Briefly. Arkham Horror can be played alone or in a team. Each of the players pick an investigator and an old god who will be the opponent. The main goal of the game is to close portals to other dimensions which will pop up in the fictional town of Arkham. The portals will spew out monsters each turn, and if too many portals are opened or you didn't manage to close all of them in a certain amount of time, you lose. Of course, your investigators have a unique trait each and different skills as well. They also possess 2 life bars, stamina and sanity. The monsters you will encounter will deal physical and psychological damage to you, and if either of those bars falls to 0, you might lose your character. Sister Mary, for example, can't get shaken easily because her max sanity caps at 7. But on the other hand, she's not good at fighting off the creatures of Arkham because she only has 3 points of stamina. The only thing to even this out is her special skill called Guardian Angel, which prevents her from getting lost in other dimensions, aka lose a turn. And just to make it more taxing, we can pick Cthulhu as the old one. Simply having him as our opponent reduces our max health and sanity by 1, making Sister Mary even more frail. In World of Horror, each student also has a unique special skill they start with, but their sanity and stamina is not personalized. Everyone starts out with the same 17 points if you play in normal mode. Furthermore, and I'm quite thankful for this, their attributes are not linked together. Strength, for example, is not dependent on your, let's say, willpower, and the stronger you are, the dumber you get. And if you're now asking who came up with this rather interesting design choice, well, Arkham did. Here you have to give a certain focus to your attributes, but every time you make one attribute stronger, another one will suffer. Sister Mary, for example, can either be fast, which allows her to move over the board quickly, or very sneaky, which allows her to evade monsters, as she should do. But at the same time, her movement speed will be drastically reduced. And this is actually a pretty big deal. A game-breaking deal. You can only walk through as many districts as your speed stat allows you to. So let's say you walk 2 areas per turn, and your portal is 4 areas away. Well, that means you can close your first portal on turn 3, which is cool, but 2 other rifts opened up in that time, which will again create monsters and make navigating around the city even harder. Now, as you can tell, speed is the single most useful stat in the game. But since speed is linked to sneakiness, that skill will suck by default, and even with other players on the board, I genuinely wondered why sneaking is even a thing when you don't give me a valid opportunity to use it. Oh wait, there is one. I completely forgot that you need to draw a card whenever you land on a field without a portal on it. These cards describe random events that happen to your investigator, and they usually want you to perform a skill check. For example, you stop by a graveyard and want to decipher something on a gravestone. For every point of wisdom you have, you take a die and roll it. You win when at least one of those dice show a 5 or a 6. But what if your next check requires your luck stat? Or better yet, a sneak check, which will almost always fail because you only have 1 die by fucking default. Oh, and sometimes those events just summon monsters. Right here, right now, and you have to fight it. Well, that's it, my weak nun's gonna die now. Bottom line, the game favors fast and brawny over intelligent and sneaky because you can't weaponize intelligence and because speed is directly attached to the mechanic of walking around the board. And the fix for this is so easy. Just give every character a fixed amount of steps they can take, separate from the traits. That way stealth becomes way more viable. And here's where World of Horror, at least in my opinion, cleans up the biggest flaw Arkham has. First of all, the skills are not linked to each other, thank God, and we don't have a board to walk around on. Instead, we have a city menu in the lower region of the screen. You just click on an area and then your character will visit that place. Whether it be a school, a shop, the seaside, it doesn't matter, you teleport now. And yes, visiting a place will still give you a random scary event, but at least you can play out your character's skills to full effect. Hell, sometimes you can even decide on an action that plays to your character's best traits. For example, investigating a trophy case gives you at least 2 options. Smash in the glass and steal the trophy, or read what's written on the trophy. One option needs strength, the other needs knowledge. Of course, both actions can still fail, but at least you are given a choice, which means that every character is more or less equal to every other character and everyone gets a valid chance to win. Also, there are no portals to close. Instead, World of Horror presents you with 5 mini-stories per run you need to go through. And that's it. After that, you can go to the lighthouse, end the ritual and win the game. And just so you know, the stories are, just like the events, chosen at random, and there are a lot of them in the game. You might need several playthroughs to experience all of them. But how do you complete these stories? Simple. First of all, you pick one of those, anyone. And then you will notice that your story screen, which is basically this quarter here, tells you a little bit about where you currently are and what you know about the mystery. You might also notice that one of the locations of the city now has a marker on it. If you want to progress the story, you need to investigate this place. Once you do, you get a random event, the story screen gets updated once you're back, and then you need to investigate a new location. This can go on for quite a while until you reach the end of the mystery, which will always feature a unique event which you can bring to an end in many different ways. And once you've done that, you choose the next mystery, rinse, repeat. Now this mechanic is very similar to Arkham actually. While you need to physically walk around a bit in the town and endure event after event until you are at the portal, World of Horror sends you around different locations to endure event after event until your character finally found the source. And of course, just like in the board game, you can encounter monsters at any given time too. But to say you are fighting would be a stretch. In this game, combat works more like a sadistic management task. First off, your health is as usual your stamina and your sanity, the exact same one you lose in those events from before. Which means that you have to think twice about fighting in the first place, even if you're able to defeat that monster now. Do you still have enough sanity left to withstand the next shock that will inevitably happen to you? If you decide to fight, however, then you will enter a turn-based battle that is pretty simple to understand. Whenever it is the monster's turn, it will slap you in the face for a fixed amount of damage, stamina or sanity or both. On your turn, you get 100 action points which you can use on different things like dodge, attack and brace yourself for impact. They all cost a different amount of points and that way you can build tailor-made strategies for each monster. Your weapon of choice also plays a big role in the fight. You can use every weapon you come across, but they profit from your stats. For example, the bone saw gets a bonus the higher your knowledge skill is. Also, sometimes you meet ghosts from Japanese folklore. Those ghosts cannot be killed, only appeased by performing a sequence of claps and bows which you have to figure out in the right order during the fight. And as you may have guessed with the weapon stats, there are also some light RPG elements in this game. Things like investigating an area, winning certain skill checks and winning fights give you experience. Once you have enough XP, you can level up and give your character a random trait. Also a bonus point in any attribute you like. But that's not all. You can also use experience as currency. The police, for example, will pay some very good money for clues you might give them. You can also pay some experience to frighten your classmates, which then will become your companions. The game also has an interesting take on magic, since it usually comes at a price. If you get a spell, it is always a one-time use only spell, and it usually costs you some sanity to cast it. Most of the spells are in fact powerful if you know how to use them, but the price to pay is always terrible. So honestly, don't rely on magic. It will hurt you more than you know. Stay with weapons and items instead. And by the way, those items can not only help you in battle, they can also help you turn certain events in your favor and better yet, unlock new endings for the mysteries. Items like a flashlight or a candle can be a downright godsend in some situations. But here's the thing, whenever you visit a shop, the items you can actually buy there are, of course, randomized. So the thing you might need might not be here. In that case, you might revisit the shop later, but only if you have the time to do it. Just like in Arkham, where the portals open up to tell you that Doom is right around the corner, World of Horror has an actual Doom counter. And it goes up for every action you take. You're going shopping for a new weapon? Well, that will cost you money and Doom. You are investigating and bringing your mission along. Doesn't matter, Doom's rising. You want to visit the hospital and get rid of an illness. Psych, it's Dr. Doom, bitch! You are always on the clock, and it creates a nice damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. Come unprepared or unrested to an event and it's game over. But waste too much time for dawdling around and you will witness reality breaking in half. The time pressure can be extremely stress-inducing if you are working a mystery that takes forever to complete. But at least you get a breather between your missions in your apartment where you can relax for free. You can, for example, just watch some TV or take a bath that gives you a nice little boost to stamina, XP or sanity. You know, there's just one last question I have. For what reason would I need a bottle near my bathtub? Well, where else am I supposed to drink my honey wine in peace? Out there while fighting monsters? Please. I want to enjoy the flavor. So, I guess it's final word time. A good artist copies, a great artist steals and makes the idea their own. And that's exactly what World of Horror did. This game is a mashup gathered together by so many different sources. But the developers did it in a spectacular way. First of all, the random nature of the game incites you to play again and again in search for the one event or one mystery you didn't discover yet. And also, like a good roguelite, you get rewarded the more you play the game. If you reach certain milestones in the game, you can unlock new characters, new events and gods to make your run even more interesting. Also, there are different game modes we haven't talked about yet. 4 to be exact. The first one is just one mystery you can play through, and it acts as your tutorial, which I am very thankful for. The second one is your standard playthrough. The third one is called Quick Play and is completely randomized, from your character to the old gods you're playing against right down to the mysteries. And mode number 4 lets you decide everything. You select the hero you want to play with, you select the old god you want to fight against. And you can even control which events you want to see and which ones you don't want. Your playthrough is fully customizable and, even better yet, moddable. In fact, the game already has a modding community that creates new events, mysteries and gods which can be integrated into the main game at your leisure. And since World of Horror is still in early access at this point, there's more official content yet to come. So I can see this game becoming a big hit in the future, despite or even because of its looks. The only thing I am not in love with is the music. As per usual, you heard it during this whole review, and I know it fits the minimalistic art style of the game, but for me the amount of tracks are too limited and none of the songs really stand out. The music does its job just fine, and it is not annoying, but it doesn't connect with me. Also, in all honesty, the RNG in this game could use a little bit of tweaking. I remember playing a match where I was just screwed from the start, because I had 6 events in a row that let my doom counter rise. I wasn't even halfway through the run and the old god awoke, but I guess that's the price you pay for total but explicitly enjoyable chaos. Alright, one more run. I'll be busy for a while. As for you, as always, thank you for watching, and see ya.